So we're going to begin tonight with our first reader, Beth McDermott. Beth is the author of Figure One, published by Pine Row Press, and she also has a chapbook titled How to Leave a Farmhouse, published by Porkbelly Press. Her poetry appears in Pine Row, Tupelo Quarterly, Terrain.org, and Memorious. Reviews and criticism about art and ecology appear in American Book Review, After the Art, Kenyon Review Online, and The Trumpeter. She's an associate professor of English at the University of St. Francis, and she's also the recipient of a Distinguished Teaching Award, an Illinois Speaks Micro Grant, and she won first place in the Regional Mississippi Valley Poetry Contest. So welcome, Beth. Thank you for being here. We can't wait to hear you read.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Lenny. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Judy, Lucia, Nicole. It's wonderful to read here with you. Everybody at South Florida Poetry Journal. I realize how much time and effort it takes to support poetry, and I'm very appreciative of this space and the opportunity to read, and also to have some lovely people in the audience, some of who I know, so hello. Some of whom I don't know, hello as well. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. So as Judy mentioned, I have recently published my first book, and it is called Figure One, and it's out from Pine Row Press. I didn't plan on wearing green, but I just realized that works out. I seriously didn't. I came right from work, but there you go. But it's a wonderful press. I highly recommend checking them out if you have a chance. They're relatively new, but putting out wonderful books, and it's been a terrific experience to work with them. So Figure One is a collection of poems in conversation with art in the natural world. A number of the poems are ekphrastic, but not necessarily in the traditional sense of poetry about painting, though there are some of those too. The first poem that I'll read is the opening poem. And I think, like a lot of opening poems, it gives a sense of the major threads in the book. It's written about a nesting doll, but it's also about the ecology of the flowers that are represented on the doll. Matryoshka. This doll, painted to resemble a peasant woman, has blue eyes, rouged cheeks, and is wearing trumpet bell-shaped poppies instead of clothing. I read about the morphology of the red poppy, a process so abrupt that a calyx seems to lose its identity at once, as it has here in the outermost doll. Only the leaves can be called the calyx. But we can go back. The buds of its breasts are not so easily lost. Designed to nest, the Matryoshka doll splits top from bottom to reveal another figure from the same stripped block of balsa. The eye color goes, the lower lashes disperse like shavings. Poppies fold into themselves. How small can they get? The innermost doll is like the calyx, not the green leafy top, but the whole strawberry. Figure 34, after Alexander Gardner. How limited the plate is once the image has been fixed. Why is each face hidden in the next body's armpit, as if there's no difference among them? I imagine this man, closest to the plate edge, had the foresight to know he'd make a less than sign, unbuttoned breeches, a tuft of pubic hair exposed to the lens like a train in a tunnel. Thanks. So I'm interested in art, obviously, but I also have a few poems about failing at art. I don't know about anybody here, but I seem to have like traveled through different art forms in my life, trying to find something that kind of worked. And so at various points, it was dance, piano, not so good at either of those. So I thought I'd read a couple of those poems. Port-de-bras, or carriage of the arms. The arm should not move from the elbow or the wrist. I watch the girl make these points disappear as if she has no bones, but scapulae, a monarch's forewings, wet and crinkled. She follows her cupped palm while her teacher's voice repeats like an instar. There is a string inside of you uncoiling like a proboscis. In the viewing room, dimly lit so that I can see through the half-silvered surface, I'm still envious. Degas, the Dance Class, 1874. It's the ballet master's elbow we see mirrored in the foremost dancer's casual second position. In the bleachers, where the waiting girls are as sharp-edged as the mirror frame, poster frame, door frame, or crook of two walls shell-colored crown molding. Unwittingly, these sisters share their evergreen tree shape with the cityscape. But the student who executes an arabesque or attitude, her leg is hidden under tulle, knows the suggestion of epaulement is like an antique find or swath of gild. Take, she says, your cue from these walls brushed a bluish eau de Nil. This is how to soften the bones of the thumb or the whole hand, inclined to curl like the roses whirl, the one near the base of the music score stand. Under pressure. As movers load the upright piano onto a dolly, a cloudy ring from my teacher's ice water glass recalls Aragonese from the opera Les Cid. I would have rather danced the ballet than played it. She would have rather performed than taught. So she would twist the tip of her yellow mechanical pencil and prescribe hours of practice. I advanced like rotting fruit. She wept bitterly like Chamonix, who had once tattooed laugh and play onto my 8-year-old knuckles and still allowed me to be who I was. Thank you. So I'm going to shift now. As you can tell, the book's a little bit eclectic, but I'm going to shift to an ecological thread, which, as I was arranging the book and weaving these poems together and hoping they would talk to each other, I saw as intention with the permanence of a framed representation. So this is also inspired in my chapbook that Judy mentioned is a little bit more in this area, but biotransitioning landscape. So many of us, I don't know, is anybody from the Midwest? Maybe not. Oh, okay. We have, or at least around where I live, quite a bit of transition over the years with expressways, rural areas becoming more suburban. And so some of these poems that are inspired by those changes are also in the book. So this is called The Mushroom Farmer. She is digging her heels in soil balled up on the plow. The feature story is her chance to self-promote, even though nothing will save her from eminent domain, including her revulsion for starter spawn. Yet her perspective is so specialized, the public can't translate it. Who cares that she uses manure which comes from maneuver? Here she is among the fruiting bodies, shining her lamp over racks of shiitake. Their spores require such sterility, a room like a cave with the ground swept clean. Strip mall bakery. Is it sufficient to grieve for an image, not the thing itself? We're all standing on black and white checkered vinyl over land altered by glaciers. In the first stages, so-called break rollers crack the kernels open. The children smudge a case of assorted donuts. I spent my childhood looking at braided spikelets in rapid succession. A field of corn was impenetrable, left my own body. Thank you. All right, this is probably one of my most favorite poems in the book. I'm not quite sure why, but it's called At the Historical Society Spaghetti Dinner. And I did attend one once, and it was a pretty good time. I highly recommend if you ever have the chance to go. Although I'm not in the Historical Society, so I don't do that work. But at the Historical Society Spaghetti Dinner, I meet Lucy, who elects to document barns approved for demolition. Photographs that are keepsakes, that's all. She doesn't enter a barn to sample wood cores with 50 to 100 rings. Simply waits for the lit match. Click. Then tags her photos with neon post-its. Her gone is not a subtle reminder. The image raises itself like a rotting stump covered with a plastic tarp. Thank you. So I'll read just a few more. I guess these are a bit more in the realm of personal poems, and I didn't have a lot of these in the collection. And when I was listening feedback from people on the manuscript before I was sending it out, one person commented that these were kind of a breath of fresh air and what were otherwise not really personal poems. So that kind of stuck with me. But this one's called Mutation. After the skin cancer was removed, I became a pink, waxy lump cut into sections, coated with dyes and frozen like a layer cake. I controlled how I saw myself stand out on the sand, watching boogie boarders glisten with salt, different as the spotted sea trout that disintegrated in the beach parking lot. Still life. If you ask how to photograph flying birds, the advice is to pan at the same speed as the bird is flying. So that must mean that stationary things deserve our lock and stare. But what happens when you're the one moving, as if stop and go down a city street, and you catch in your periphery something still? You have to twist and pan it, pan with no zoom, pan so that the boy I see on the corner of Harrison is only about to cry under the hospital sign. Or could he be simply lost? Like a coin tossed up to decide whose ball it is next, a flock of blackbirds flashes silver when it flips end over end. Look at his arms as you're passing, his arms too long for his unfinished height. Thank you. And this last poem I'll read, it is called When I Was Young, I Too Read Charlotte's Web. Of course, Charlotte's Web ends up in my book, I don't know. I think of being young whenever I hear cilantro called coriander. Try it and you will think of fern at the county fair. But having grown, would she have picked the milking stool over the Ferris wheel, the gusset over the top stitch, the wall over the open air? Someday I'll smile and say, when you were young, we read together. You'll pour tea, I'll sit. Outside a finch will prattle. Imagine us and you will think of water draining through a colander. If pressed to choose, always read what I read. Thank you very much.